So hi, I'm Greta Kelly. This is 5 Minutes with an Author. Can you introduce yourself and your book?
Yeah, so my name is A.P. Goodman, and I write the Magdalena Basil series. My first book is Legacy Academy, and then book 2 just came out this month, and that's A Story, A Secret. It is set to be a trilogy, so then the third book will be out late spring, early summer.
So what was the best book you've read so far this year?
Haunted Hearts by Emma Riley. She's an indie published author, but it's like Sleepy Hollow meets mystery, like murder mystery. It was really good.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
I'll look that up. Most random piece of research you've done?
I had to research a lot about frog, which was super fun, but then you can kind of get in a rabbit hole and like, you start Google mapping things of like, okay, if they're walking this fast, how long does it take to go from this frog site to that frog
Yeah,
site?
that's called research procrastination.
Yes, for like 3 sentences. But
Yeah.
That's all right, that's all right.
So tell me about the first book you fell in love with.
The oldest book I remember was an Animorphs. I don't know if you guys remember Animorphs, but my favorite animal was a dolphin, and they had one where like the guy was changing into a dolphin. And I remember nothing about the story, but I remember the cover, and then I read the whole series, and I was kind of hooked.
Is that the book that made you want to become an author, or did something else happen?
I've always liked writing. I think I started with poetry when I was in, middle school or wonderful language arts classes. And
Lifesavers.
yeah, right? But then I took a creative writing class in high school with the brother of the person who started The Onion, if you guys are familiar with that. And
Really? That's so cool.
yeah, and he was really cool.
Yeah.
And he just had a lot of constructive criticism, and I think if you have a teacher that believes in you, it can kind of go a long way. So, yeah.
So what's your favorite part about being an author?
I really like meeting people, and I write YA, so I get to meet a lot of age groups.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice because you get like, your almost double-digit people, the readers who are just kind of emerging onto reading and get to talk to them, all the way up through like, oh, I remember when, Lord of the Rings first came out, right? And so it's cool to have so many different perspectives from so many different people.
This is a good one. What book do you absolutely hate? Is there one that you just had to read through?
I don't know that I hate it, but I am a huge Neil Gaiman fan, and I have started American Gods 5 times, and I get stuck at the same scene every time, and I know what's coming, and I'm like, no, we're just going to get through it, and then I don't, and I want to like it so bad because I love him, and I can't, and it's like chapter 2.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question then. Have you seen the adaptation?
I know it exists.
Okay.
But
I was going to ask if the adaptation was any better.
So I want to reward myself, and I can watch the adaptation once I read the book, but there's an opening scene with a succubus, and I just really struggle with it.
Is there any book to movie or TV show adaptation that you thought really nailed it?
It's probably because of the age, but a lot of the Nicholas Sparks books that I read that went to adaptation, I really liked. I love Mandy Moore, so that was an easy sell for a walk to remember.
Gosh, that movie destroyed me.
Yes, which is fantastic, 10 out of 10. But Rachel McAdams is so cute too.
Yeah.
And so The Notebook was an easy sell.
Easy sell, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Greta. Thanks, everybody.
So can you introduce yourself and maybe give the elevator pitch for your book?
My name is Michelle Murray, and I write the Dreamwalker Land of Mystica series. There are 3 books in the series right now. It's about the main girl, her name is Miranda, and there are wizards that are trapped in stone, so there's 3 good ones and 3 bad ones. So in each book there's a little bit of good and a little bit of evil. There's magic and wizards and dragons. It's a really fun little story.
Yeah, I love that. So what was it that made you want to become an author?
I've been writing since high school, and I got some poems and some short stories published in anthologies, and I won a scholarship for college. And I have a lot of good feedback that people really like my writing. So just kept at it.
Good teachers then, yeah. So what's your favorite character to have written in any of your stories? Do you have a favorite?
I think Miranda.
Yeah.
She's just spicy, but she's caring, so she's strong but caring kind of at the same time.
Yeah,
And,
that's a good balance.
yeah.
What about least favorite character?
I need some of that.
Do you have a least favorite character that you've ever written, or maybe one that was just the hardest to find the voice to?
Maybe like the ice people.
Okay.
It's a whole different
Yeah.
creature and genre, and so
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you remember the first book that you ever fell in love with?
I don't really remember the first, but I've read a lot growing up, like
Yeah.
Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings, and
Yeah.
you know, all
Yeah.
those books.
Yeah.
I really always have a place in my head.
Of course. Was that what made you want to become a writer?
Like I said, I think it's just more of getting my feelings onto paper is kind
Yeah.
of what started me. But then as people were reading it and were like, hey, we really want to see this
Yeah.
out there, and people were encouraging me, and other people were encouraging me, my professors were encouraging me to pursue this. So
Perfect.
yeah.
What's on your to-be-read list right now?
I'm just finished Dragonlance, the second book.
Oh gosh, I haven't read those in forever.
I know
They're
they just
so
came.
good.
They just came out with a new trilogy.
Okay.
So.
Well, now's a good time to reread them,
Yeah.
I guess. What do you wish you had known at the beginning of your career?
I kind of jumped into this head first or feet first, instead of wading into it a little bit. So I wish I would have just known a little bit more about the publishing and connected with some fellow authors before kind of diving into it.
You don't know until you know, you
But
know?
it's all good. I've had a lot of success with it. And I have a lot of loyal fans, so it's all good. But maybe I should have started like the shell egg first.
Are you a plotter or do you discovery write?
It's kind of a little bit of both. I kind of do the spider web method.
Oh, I've never heard it referred to that way.
I don't know if it's referred to that. I make that up as I go. But like I outline it and then I kind of fill in, as in writing, and so it's kind of that's what I call it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually the name.
That's all right. We'll just make that the name for
Could
it.
I ask a question? Could you explain a little bit more about the spider web method? What exactly do you mean?
Like
I'm
you,
kind of picturing it.
like you write. Like I write like notes like what I wanted to go by, but then maybe it kind of goes in this direction, and then maybe it kind of goes in this direction, so it kind of strings out to different direction.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the most random piece of research you've ever had to do?
Castles and dreams.
Okay. Castle seems like a good one. I feel like I always come back to like trying to find good like architecture maps.
Right, exactly. And then dreams, because my book is about dreams.
Yeah. So are you working on anything next?
Yes, I'm actually working on the fourth series for this.
Okay.
Fourth book for this series. I'm about 3/4 of the way done.
Yeah.
So.
How long is the series going to be?
Not really sure yet, because there's 6 wizards total, so I could really expand on those wizards. I'd like to go back and expand on what they were like before they were turned into stone, so that could be 6 whole other books.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of work ahead of you. Do you have any advice for people who might be looking to start out as an author? What's your favorite piece of advice to give people?
I think my favorite piece of advice is just keep writing and just keep getting your work out there. Just keep at it.
Yeah, that's good advice. Where can people find you on social media or online?
Yes, I have my books are on Amazon, and I have a Facebook page for my Dreamwalker series.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you
joining
for
me.
having me.
The cuffs of your sleeves, I've been trying my wedding dress. Big fan. All right, why don't we kick things off? Can you introduce yourself and maybe give the elevator pitch for your book?
Sure, which I personally think is harder than writing a whole book.
Absolutely.
I say that. But my name is Maggie Ginsberg, and this is my debut novel that came out exactly a year ago this week, actually, from the University
Happy
of Wisconsin
book
Press.
birthday.
Thank you. And it's about a couple that has been married for 28 years, but they've never lived together. They live in separate houses 2 miles apart in fictional Anthem, Wisconsin. And it's about what finally comes between them.
Okay. That sounds really compelling. Goodness. So, it being about 2 different people, did you have a favorite character to write?
I would say the character of Liv Hansen, it was my favorite to write. You know, I knew that she was very private and very independent. And so my first thought when this character came to me is, well, she must be alone and she must not be married. And then my second thought was, well, why? You know, why is she either independent and strong or married? And so that was when I thought, okay, they're in separate houses, and then why? And then
why?
Who is that? And what's going on there? So,
interesting. So is that how the story kind of evolved, or did you have more of like a linear outlining process to it?
Definitely involved from the characters and the questions. I was really curious about if you can really have both, you know, true intimacy and true independence.
Okay.
At the same time in a marriage, and I was curious about why she was so self-protective, and her views on what is the difference between privacy and secrecy, and between secret keeping and lying, and kind of where those lines fall. And I was also curious about how she would handle it when some things she'd been keeping from her husband, you know, came to light, and she wanted to continue keeping those things from him, and I wondered what that would be like to, you know, to
be the
not have your
other half
person that you need to go through something really big that she was going through, kind of the ways she was getting in her own way. I was just very curious about all that, enough to stick with it for
That's lush. That's really cool. So is this the first book you've ever attempted to write?
It's the first book I have ever attempted to write or written, and it's my first fiction. I'm a nonfiction writer.
Really?
I'm a magazine writer, so I've done that for 18 years or something. But I thought that authors had magical unicorn brains with just like all these ideas just flowing, and, you know, imagination, and I know some authors do, but that's not me. And so I never tried because I thought that wasn't me.
Yeah.
So it all changed when I thought of them as real people in a real place, and then I just needed to interview them and research, and just like I do in my day job. And then it just became easier and also a lot more fun to just be able to make stuff up and not be stuck with the truth all the time.
Yeah.
That's annoying.
It's overrated.
Yeah, totally.
So if you could cast the movie for your
I
for
was
your
hoping
book.
you wouldn't ask.
I'm sorry.
You know, it's so hard because they do feel like real people to me, and so I can't put other people's faces on them. For Jack Hansen, her husband, I do think about that. What is his name? Jeffrey Dean something, who's the
Jeffrey
Walking
Dean
Dead.
Morgan?
Yes.
Yes.
That guy.
I would watch that just for him.
Yeah. And then maybe she's just like, actually she is the right age, but Robin Wright. If you put some silver hair on Robin Wright, she was Robin Wright Sean Penn's.
Yeah.
Then maybe those two.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I would love to see them on screen, so let's just go with that.
Let's
just make that happen.
Yeah.
So what has been the most surprising part of being an author to you? 'Cause obviously you've been writing for a long time.
Yeah. Well, it's surprising how much higher the bar for truth is in fiction than in my nonfiction work. It has to feel so true, or people will not stick with you. You know, everything has to, if I wrote about this color of stain that didn't exist in 2007, somebody calls me out on that, they're, throws the book across the room, and they're not going to keep going with me, which is, I don't know, I found that really challenging, but also like rewarding, but it's done to just make it feel true. Yeah.
So where can people find you and your book online?
I'm MaggieGinsberg.com, and I don't know, I might be the only Maggie Ginsberg who exists when I Google me. Not that I do that. It's just me everywhere, so I can't get away with much. Yes, MaggieGinsberg.com is a good place to start.
All right. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so
you.
much for joining us. All right, can you introduce yourself and your books?
Sure. My name is Tia Richardson. I'm the author, illustrator for these two books called Caring All Around Me, and then the workbook that goes with it.
So you do both. You did the drawing as well.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. So what came first for you, the love of storytelling or the more visual art aspect of it?
The visual art.
Okay,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
So when did the words start coming to you?
The words, well, I was working with a program through a social services organization as an artist in residence to do bookmaking
Yeah.
for youth in the foster system. And so I created this template for them. It was a 10-page template for them to take themselves through a journey, through a garden, where they could fill in the blanks of what happens along the way as they encounter different roadblocks in the garden, and ways they could navigate that, make choices, self-empowerment, kind of inspiring.
Yeah.
And that 10-page little template, fill in the blanks, became a story.
That's wonderful. It's like so funny how that happens. Like suddenly you just have the idea and it just happens. Awesome. So what is the hardest aspect of this process? What has that been for you?
Probably with the book, working with the editors, the publishers, I had never had my writing critiqued so closely.
Yeah.
And that process was really difficult, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, it's hard for everyone though. You're not alone.
That actually helped me when the editor told me this is actually a thing where writers feel like this is their baby, and then they get that scrutinized, and that was like someone pulling your baby from your clutches.
Yeah. It's like they're taking it and saying, this baby's kind of ugly. You should really.
Yeah. Constructive.
Yeah, it works in the end. So what is your favorite book?
I don't know. The one that came to me when I first heard the question was, there's two books that really inspired me when I was in high school, and one was The Celestine Prophecy. I see some heads nodding, and that was like a whole journey thing before the whole Da Vinci Code, and but that was self-discovery in a way.
Yeah.
And then Conversations with God.
Okay. There's some perennial classics there. What is the best book to TV or book to movie adaptation you've ever seen? Or what's a really bad one, if that's easier?
I'll just name off the top of my head. I'll name a few that I really liked.
Okay.
Ooh, I don't know if they were book too.
No, we'll go with
TV.
it.
These are movies that I love.
Okay.
Because what came to me, because I'm thinking of the visual art, The
Yeah.
Lion King,
Okay.
basically all the Disney classics,
Mhm.
and I'll kind of just leave it at that for now.
Okay.
There's probably others, but I can't remember.
So how did you first learn to draw? Was it something like a class that you took or a family member that taught you? How did that love happen?
Drawing was a way to express myself, and so some of the themes in the book kind of deal with that way of, I heard someone say earlier about getting our feelings on paper,
Yeah.
and drawing was an immediate way for me to do that without much judgment.
Yeah.
And then creative writing also was a way that I expressed myself too. And I used to actually put pictures to my writing. So I used to make little books when I was younger. And so I've just kept following that. And so when I work with young people, what I'm trying to help them do is express themselves, discover themselves in much the same way that I found helped me.
Yeah. That must be so rewarding though. Is it your favorite part of being an author is getting to actually see the kids and work with them?
See the kids, work with them. Gosh, it's so their faces light up
Yeah.
when they do the simplest thing.
Yeah.
And it's so much more down to earth than in traditional art. One of the things I just didn't like was how seriously artists can take how we can take ourselves.
Yeah.
And when it all comes down to it, we're all just learning and discovering, and it's just finding a way to be more real and helping young people see that they themselves, they have exactly what is needed. All of us have exactly what we needed to contribute to the part of the larger whole to make it better for what we have inside of value, and we all have something of value to contribute.
That's beautiful. Well, before we go, where can we find you and your book online?
Cosmic-butterfly.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
noticed the little palm trees on your shirt. That's really cute.
I'm Norma Lundstrom, and I basically write children's books because I'm a retired teacher. So the book I read today for the children was the dog book, and the thing I like to do about my dog books, basically some of the illustrations are cut paper. I have a friend who did that, and then actual pictures of my dog. But also in the back, I like to use my books to help children make their own books. So at the back of the book, I had, I'm sorry, you want to ask a question? I'm going on.
It's okay, go for it.
Once you started teaching, you can't stop. So anyway, today they learned some new words through this book, so I have them in the back of the book so that they can look them up, and then they can incorporate them in their own stories throughout the book. There's blank pages for them to do that. So I've written 5 books total. 3 of them are basically children. One is kind of a young adult. That's basically my pictures I took traveling, and then my thoughts on life or different chapters of my life. And then this book is very dear to me. It's the story of my daughter who died at the age of 18. She was injected with a lethal combination of heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl. And a few weeks after, I found her journal, and so I put it into a book. And stand still is because her favorite Bible verse was, "Be still and know that I am God." So I read this book at youth groups at churches and share her struggles with mental illness and social media and self-harm. So this is the book I'm the most proud of because I'm keeping her memory alive.
It's beautiful. So which of your stories came first? Is it one of the dog books?
No,
Is it
the
your
very
daughter's
first book
story?
I wrote was called The Chubby Girl, and it's really short. It's for really young children. It's my story of me in 2nd grade being the chubby girl, the one that was always chosen last for sports and games, and so that was my first.
I could have used that in 2nd grade. So what age group did you teach when you were a teacher?
Well, 35 years total. 1st grade, 2nd grade, early childhood, children with special needs, didn't speak English, autism, and Down syndrome.
Wow, that's a lot of experience. It's wonderful. What made you want to be an author? Why did you wait until after you retired? Was it
Well,
just a matter
actually,
of
I
time,
started
or-
writing poetry when I was very young, and then in college.
Yeah.
And I actually won an award in San Francisco in 1987 for Poet of Merit. Then I just decided after teaching children how to read that I wanted to write books that would engage them and that they would enjoy reading.
Yeah. So is meeting kids still one of your favorite parts of being
Oh
an
yes,
author?
I relish story time.
Yeah.
I just eat it up. I love it.
Can people contact you for school visits? Is that something that you're open to doing?
I'm open to doing. I'm also open to doing this book.
Perfect. What is the best book that you've read so far this year?
Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman.
Oh, I've heard great things about that book.
Love
Was
Alice
it good?
Hoffman. Sam introduced me to her, and so yeah.
She's practical magic, right?
Practical Magic.
Okay.
I got to watch it every year.
Yeah, that's one of my Halloween movies too.
Yeah.
What is the best piece of writing advice that you've ever received?
I think my high school teacher told me to never stop, to write what you know, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
I journal and I write what I know.
What's been the most surprising part of this whole author journey for you?
Meeting great people, these events, and meeting Sam.
Oh, isn't Sam the best?
I call her my adopted daughter.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Where can we find you online before you go?
Amazon and, of course, Blue House Books.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Norma. Another beautiful scarf.
To the scarf group.
Ready? Yep. Okay. So why don't we start with you introducing yourself and tell us a little bit about your book.
My name is Rochelle Melander, and my book is Mightier Than the Sword, Rebels, Reformers, and Revolutionaries Who Changed the World Through Writing. And it's just that, it's a collection of stories of more than 40 people who use their words to change the world.
That's beautiful. Is this like a more geared towards children or just for everybody?
It's more geared towards children, so it's 8 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
And each chapter, as well as having a story about a person, has some writing exercises.
Okay.
So that kids can write their own stories and letters and laws and all that stuff.
So I imagine a huge amount of research must have gone into this.
Yes, I have a picture that I show kids when I do school visits of 5 big bags of books that I ran around grabbing from the library the weekend before everything closed down during COVID.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
I took out over 100 books and spent 6
Yeah.
months researching them.
So is there, this is probably like choosing between your children, but is there a favorite person or someone who you think people don't know about but should?
I think everybody knows about and loves hearing about Malala because she's the youngest person to win the Nobel Prize, and she started writing when she was 11. I think people are surprised to know that Charles Darwin was such a stinker when he was a kid. He would sneak out of school and go home. So he was at a boarding school, but it was close enough to his house so that he could run home. And he had a chemistry lab in his backyard, and so he could make laughing gas and explode things. And so his nickname was Gas. When he was young. And there are lots of stories. I think the most surprising thing kids will find is that there are lots of stories about young people, ages 5 and up, who have used writing to change the world.
Wow, that's amazing. So where did the idea for this book come from?
I've been teaching writing to kids since about 2005, and so I was dragging books into the library every week and telling them stories of people who use their writing to change the world. And kids would say to me, I don't need to be a writer, I'm going to become a police officer. I don't need to be a writer, I'm going to become this. And I'd be like, well, police officers write. No, they don't. And so I wanted them to understand like how important it was for them to write, and I wanted them to have all these people whose books I've been dragging to the library all these years in one book, so that they could just open the book and learn about all these people.
That's great. So is interacting with the children still like one of your favorite parts of being an author?
Yeah, doing school visits, I do writing residencies in schools is one of my favorite parts because it gets the kids writing, which is really important.
Do you have like a least favorite part of being a professional author?
I think trying to sell my work, just sending out queries and all that stuff, that's my least
The
favorite.
business side always gets people.
Yes.
What is the book that you first remember falling in love with?
When I was 7, it was A Wrinkle in Time by Milo Lingle.
That's a good one. What's been your favorite book of the year so far?
Lessons in Chemistry.
What's it about?
It's about a woman who is a chemist in the 50s or 60s, and she becomes a single mother, and it's how she kind of makes her way and all the different things. Bonnie Garman is the author, and she's a woman in her 60s.
Okay.
It is a really awesome book, bestseller.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. If you could have dinner with any 3 people, alive or dead, who would they be?
Probably Madeline Lingle. Probably Malala. I think she would be interesting, and maybe Langston Hughes. I find him very interesting.
That would be a great dinner party.
Wouldn't it be interesting?
Yeah. I'd just be a fly on the wall for that dinner party. I'll serve. Well, before we wrap up, where can people find you online? Are you available for school visits, and how do they facilitate that?
I'm available for school visits. You can find me at rightnowcoach.com, WRITE, now coach, or RochelleMelander.com.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
joining
much.
me.
We still got time.
Yeah.
I was like, I know we started.
I don't know where Meg went, but we're good. Okay. All right, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your book?
Okay, I'll do that to the camera. My name is Caitlin Bolliard. This is my most recent book. I actually have a few books out now.
Yep.
But this is mystical music. For some reason I want to say magical music sometimes. And it's about a piano player who plays in hotel lobbies.
And so kind of playing the music kind of music.
Gotcha.
But that's not what he wants to be doing, of course. He wants to play concerts, concert halls, jazz clubs, those kinds of things. One day he wanders into a tarot card reader shop, and this woman reads his cards, and he doesn't believe in it. He's kind of like, this is not my thing. But then some of the things that she read to him in her reading start happening in his life. So he's starting to see these connections. He's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And he realizes that he has some magic himself.
Okay.
And he winds up using that magic to become more successful and also to woo a woman. So there's a little bit of
There you go.
romance
a little bit
in
of
there
romance
too.
in there. Well, fan cast it for me. It could be made into a TV or a movie. Who would be your main character?
So it's a little bit of a hard question for me because I don't follow actors so much, but I do have an idea of like what the characters would look like.
Yeah.
So I could, I don't know, give you a better character description. The main character is Marek, and he's kind of, well, Marek is actually the Polish version of Mark.
Okay.
So he would be a Polish man.
Yeah.
But he would kind of be like wearing a suit, he'd be kind of like a clean kind of looking guy.
Very good.
But Olive, his love interest, is she's an interesting person. They describe her skin color as kind of like this golden hue.
Okay.
At one point, he asks her. Sorry, I'm telling you too much. But at one point he asks her, what are you mixed with? Because she seems to be of mixed descendancy, and she says sperm and egg. But it's clear that she's not white.
Yeah.
And she has long curly hair.
Okay.
Yeah, so she'd be kind of like one of those people that you're not quite sure ethnically
So
who they are. Yeah.
tell me, where did it all begin for you? Why did you want to become an author?
Because I was a reader.
Okay.
So the biggest thing was when I was a child, I read a lot. I didn't have a whole lot of friends, and I would just go through novels like nobody's business. So I thought it would be really cool to be the person writing those novels.
Yeah. Do you remember if there was like one book that actually made you think, oh, this is what I want to do for myself?
I don't think so. I think it was kind of just like the magic, and somehow I thought that maybe I'd be able to recreate it myself too.
What's been the most surprising part about being an author for you?
I finally had the magic moment where my characters started doing things on their own. I kind of believe that was a myth. Like how can your characters do things without you having control of them?
Which is like an artsy thing that people said.
Yeah. And so like that didn't really happen with my first novel, but with this one, my characters started doing things that I didn't plan on them doing.
Yeah.
So kind of that really surprised me, that it wasn't just a myth that people say their characters do things.
Yeah. So what's been the best piece of writing advice that you've ever received?
Probably to keep at it.
Yeah.
Don't quit, and then also trying to build a daily writing habit. Recently, I haven't been writing as much as I would like to, but even just having that habit of like, it's work.
Yeah.
You can't just expect it to fall together for you.
Yeah. Awesome. So what's been the best book you read so far this year?
This year. Let's see. So I did read, there's a series that I've been following by Shauna McGuire.
Okay.
She does urban fantasy, and it's, I can't remember the title of the book, but her most recent book, it's October Day is her main character for this series.
Great name for a character.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. It's kind of like all the characters are different types of fae, like different types of fairies. But then it's really gritty, like there's people getting murdered and she's trying to solve what's happening. And
Nice.
I really enjoy the series. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, before we go, where can people find you and your books online?
Yeah, so I do have my own website. It's CaitlinBolliard.com, but you can also find me on Amazon or locally through Blue House Books or Studio Moonfall.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
That might be all that there is. All right. Thank you all for being here.
Okay, here we are at the Southport Fair Book Festival, and I am with your name?
I'm Greta Kelly.
Greta, what a great event today. I know you were moderating some of these panels. Which ones did you do?
I did the romance session with Gina Maxwell.
Okay. And this last one that you were doing?
It was the 5 minutes with an author, where I sit down and rapid fire question 5 minutes with all your favorite local authors.
That was pretty good because not every guest was every guest was different questions. Did you prepare for this before?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I always want to at least have an idea of what questions I'm going to ask before I sit down with people.
Well, let's get a background. I'm going to turn the tables on you. We're going to fire that. So are you an author?
I am. I'm an adult fantasy author of The Frozen Crown, The Seventh Queen, and The Queen of Days, which comes out in October.
Well, what made you become an author?
So I was always reading and writing throughout my childhood, and I knew I'd been writing books in high school, but I went to high school around that time when everyone was talking about the death of print media. So being an author seemed like something that real people just didn't do. So I went off to college and got myself a business degree because I thought that would be the practical thing, only to graduate and get that first job at a local bank and think, I can't do this for my whole life. So during my lunch breaks, I was that weird lady in the lunchroom who didn't talk to anyone and just writing books, and that's where The Frozen Crown came from.
Really?
Yeah.
What we have the publishing process. How does that work? How was it the first try, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I had written books previous to The Frozen Crown that I just kind of knew weren't right. But I knew The Frozen Crown was something special, so at that point I started researching the traditional publishing process. So I found a literary agent and signed with her, and she took the book out on submissions, which is how books get sold traditionally. And eventually it was picked up by HarperCollins, and the rest is history.
Excellent. Well, I'll throw one of your questions. If it becomes a movie, who would you want to be in it?
Oh, it's so hard. Well, Margot Robbie is wonderful, so I would love for her to be my grumpy Princess Askia.
There you go. Do you have any other books in the works following?
Yeah. So my third book, like I said, is coming out in October 24th. It's called The Queen of Days, and it's a heist and hijinks adventure about a group of thieves out to stop their city's governor from resurrecting a fallen god.
And if people want to see your work, do you have a website or social media?
Of course. So I have a website. It's GretaKKelly.com. I'm also on all the social media platforms at Greta K. Kelly.
All right. Well, Greta, may I say you did just an excellent job today, and thank you so much for coming to the event.
Thanks for having me.